Hey, Drew, we're back.
Hey, Brandt. What would you do over the weekend?
Oh, over the weekend.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. What did we do? It was beautiful outside, so we went down to
The beach? Did you guys go down to the beach?
Yeah, we went down to the beach and we got to play in the water. Had some, the kids.
Did you guys have pie? Was it pie?
Pie? No.
Oh.
No. We had friends come over.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was good. We also went to
The carnival?
Gold Medal Farms and
The what?
the Gold Medal Farms, and the kids got to play in the
Corn?
the corn bin. You've seen that before.
That's cool. Yeah,
it's
that
good fun.
was super cool. Is it super annoying when I finish your sentence for you?
Yes.
Is it super annoying when I finish your sentence for you and it's wrong?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it is. It is annoying.
So we're going to talk about this because we have a podcast that is about listening. And sometimes in our life, we listen to other people's stories, and especially those that are closest to us, that we are familiar with their cadence. We're familiar with how they talk and the way that they talk. And sometimes they'll just kind of leave it out there. They'll kind of leave that sentence out there a little bit. And what do we do, Brandt? What do we do?
They don't even leave it out there sometimes. Sometimes, like, we just get so excited. We're anticipating. We're like, oh, I know where they're going with this. I know what they're going to say. I'm going to say it because I'm really excited to hear it. Or I'm anticipating it, and I know what they're going to say, so I'm going to jump in and say it.
Right at the end.
Right at the end. It's that anticipation. I've been holding my tongue this whole time you've been talking because I'm, like, ready to jump in there and say my next thing. It can be annoying, but it is also a sign that there is a level of closeness there, that you know that person well enough that you can anticipate their thought process and where they might be going. It shows that you're actually really listening to that person.
That's the fascinating part. This thing that can be annoying can also be enduring and can be this act, probably most often subconscious act, that might show them that you're listening and that you're considerate. Is finishing each other's sentences enduring and cute and affectionate, or is it super annoying and you shouldn't do it anymore?
Yeah, and does it have a purpose? Did we evolve to develop this skill set, and what purpose is it serving us? And can it serve us better? Right. Or should we just shut up and stop finishing each other's sentences? From conversations to the natural world to complete silence, so many of us focus on what's next rather than what is happening now. I'm Listening is a podcast that dissects the importance of listening.
I'm Drew Richmond.
And I'm Brandt Christofferson.
And this is I'm Listening, a podcast simply about the skill of listening.
Drew, when's the first time you noticed this phenomenon of you finishing someone else's sentences or someone else finishing your sentences?
That's a great question. I don't recognize people finishing my sentences.
If
they do, I do not know that they are doing it. I finish my wife's sentences and can anticipate the end of almost every sentence she is going to say, and I consciously don't finish them for her.
Hi, Christy. We should have Christy
hello, dear.
here.
Sorry about that. Oh, by the way, she's going to find out about this when she's listening to this.
Oh, good.
I'm not going to tell her.
Well,
it should go over well.
Yeah, next episode will be Christy's response to this podcast. Okay, so you notice it where when you're talking, your talking style is a little more absolute. You will not leave a lot of pauses and breaks when you talk, and it just ends. So there's no area for someone to jump in and finish your sentence. Whereas
I don't think so.
Whereas when I talk, I will have pauses and I will think a little bit. Sometimes my words don't quite come out, which leaves me open to people
finishing your sentences.
Yes. Why do we do this?
Well, let's start here. Who do we do this with?
Yeah.
So I talked about my wife. We've been married approaching 19 years. I don't really think I do it with other people, but the research that we've done and showed it's usually people that we're closest with. You don't do this to your boss, right? You don't do this to a person you just met. Could come off as super annoying and could definitely rub somebody the wrong way, even though it shows them, in theory, that you're listening to them and that you're paying attention to it.
Yeah. So it's with those close people. I often find, too, it's with shared experiences where we've gone through something together. Maybe you're telling a story about a situation, and I was there with you, anticipating, oh, where's he going to go with this story? I think he's going here. It shows the listener that you're trying to listen and you've got a deeper understanding of their thoughts or feelings. So this is not even a conscious skill set a lot of the time. We're just doing it because we're really trying to listen. Sometimes it's just a byproduct of what comes out.
Okay, so we all have this really cool thing. We just did this trip. We just saw this thing. We just jumped out of an airplane, whatever. You're not going to just tell that story once, right? Every person you see, every group setting you're in, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, and I jumped out of it. And you're going to say, maybe the next person's going to say airplane. You're going to tell these stories a few times in a relatively short period. And maybe you want to say it a little bit differently, or you want to put a different angle on it. So you jump in. That's interrupting each other.
You bring up a good point about interrupting and about finishing sentences. You can finish someone else's sentence and interrupt them. I think that's the phenomenon that you talked about with you and Christy, is that for you, you're anticipating what she's going to say and want to say it. For her, it may seem as you are interrupting.
Yeah, that's the part where it's like, okay, so if you do this to those that you're closest with, that you spend the most amount of time with, and there's some empathy in there, or there's some emotional connection in there, then you aren't trying to be rude, right? You're not trying to upset them, but that's why I try to be super conscious about it, because it does happen. It's not just with my wife, it's with other people too.
Yeah.
And that's different than, no, you're not telling it right. I'm going to tell. That's interrupting and retelling the story. This is literally finishing what's about to come out of their mouth. And this can go haywire too. And this is where, if you're doing this subconsciously, but then it kind of enters that you're doing this thing, or they say, hey, stop finishing my sentences. It's annoying. Mm-hmm. Usually when that happens, you can do it wrong. This isn't like, you're not batting 1,000 in this realm. You can do it wrong. And you can go ahead and finish your sentence with the wrong word.
You know what? That happens to me all the time when I'm texting, and I will go to write a word and it keeps giving me the wrong word. And I'm like, damn it, autofill. Like, that is not the word that I wanted.
Oh my God. Autofill. Is autofill whilst texting or emailing the same thing as finishing your sentence verbally?
I think it is. I think it is. It's trying to predict what we are going to say and fill it in for us so we don't have to type it. And that...
But it doesn't start that way. It's not like, I think your next sentence is going to start like this. It's finishing the sentence for you.
Yeah, it's finishing the sentence for me. And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it goes horribly wrong.
Is this confession time? I despise autofill. I despise autofill so much that if it autofills the correct words or word, I will not allow it to happen. Or delete the words that are autofilled, even though it's what I was going to do, so that I can type it in myself.
That's funny.
So, doctor, what does that mean?
As you're talking,
am I a psychopath?
You made me think of Clippy, Microsoft's little paperclip assistant from like 20 years ago. You'd open Microsoft Word, you start writing, hey, it looks like you're trying to write a letter. And you're like, go away.
That was the word. Clippy. He would like pop out of the corner of this little cartoon. It was like, hey, do you want help with these 36 things? No, go away.
But I feel like it's gotten better over time. Now when, I feel like they're actually autofilling words I actually want to use most of the time.
Well, maybe that's the origin of why I hate autofill, is because I had to deal with Clippy for 5 years.
You couldn't get rid of it. It would just keep showing up.
No, it just kept like, I'd have to Google how to kill Clippy. So, all right, well, that's fascinating, Brandt. You just took me down a rabbit hole, because now I'm thinking about Clippy and how much hatred I had for him. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this myself. And now Clippy's been gone for 20 years. And autofill is now part of my life, and I hate it, and I don't. That's it. That's why.
So you dislike it or you hate it? You hate it. You said you hate it. I'm not going to try. I'm not going to try and change your words.
No, no, you
hate
can. Hate's a strong word.
Okay.
Hate's a strong word. I dislike Clippy
because it continually filled in the wrong words. So over time, you have developed this relationship, this pattern where it's like, you don't understand me. You don't get me. You are consistently going the wrong way. There's no connection there.
Correct.
Which I think is fascinating. I mean, we're getting into the whole AI world, but when I'm able to draft something using AI and it can pick up my style and write out things that are very similar to what I want to be hearing, it's pretty amazing. And I feel this closeness to it.
Well, okay. I have a problem.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Drew, and I think I have problems because, and it's a control thing. Now you Google something.
Yeah.
And at the top of the Google screen is AI generating responses for you.
Yep.
I despise that because I don't know its origin. I don't know if it's right or wrong. So if I Google something and I'm not like, hey, an owner's manual, or I want to see how this works. All right. It's something that's pretty specific. And it's like, AI generated these responses for you. I'm scrolling past it. So I can find like, this is the manual that or here. It was cited in this article or something that has a little bit more behind it than just, hey, we found this in thin air. I'm scrolling past it. Is this all the same? Oh my God, Brandt, do I have problems? Is this why I finish each other's sentences? Because it's a control issue? Because of Clippy? Is this because of Clippy?
It's all because of Clippy. All right. We'll be right back, and this time we'll bring in Drew's therapist to talk with him about his Clippy issues.
Oh, God. It's all because of Clippy.
It's all because of Clippy. Are you crazy? Are you controlling? No, I think it's trust. You want to know that you can trust something, and you've had enough experiences where it was not giving you trustable, reliable sources. Therefore, you're like, wait a minute. I'm not going to blindly follow my GPS to wherever it's directing me. I'm going to look at the route myself and verify that is the correct way I want to go.
Sure.
I almost ended up in Mexico once. I was just like trying to get across El Paso. This is like 10 years ago. And I'm like, I just need to get over here. And all of a sudden, like, the road starts getting fenced in. And it's like, welcome to Juarez. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not. I just need to get across town. I understand that, like, this might be a shortcut, but I can't leave the country. I don't have my passport or anything. So yeah. Let's get this back into actual humans and out of the.
Oh, yeah.
Out of the
okay. So out of the Clippy world. Yes. All right. So back to humans. So it shows support. It shows compassion and trust, understanding. And at the exact, this is why this is confusing. At the exact same time, it's impulsive. It's anxiety driven. Perhaps you're like, hurry up, spit it out. It's impatient. It can be, a lot of things are tied to ADHD and all this other stuff where you're just like, your brain's going faster than what the other person's talking about. So and you can't handle it.
Yeah.
And it comes off as rude. So I don't know. This is the research that we've done. This is all over the place. I'm going to go to science here a little bit.
I've heard of it. I've heard of science.
Yes. And there have been some scientific research in this world, but I would say that it is still inconclusive at this point. But it's interesting that people are going about this. There is some connection, typically with people that you're closest with. There's some memory involved.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about you pick up their cadence. You maybe have heard the story before. You know how they talk and how they finish their sentences, and you may be jumping in. You're comfortable with them, and this is not an interview where you're cutting people off. So it's attached to memory. Well, memory in the brain is the hippocampus.
Yeah, memory.
Okay.
Hippocampus, got it.
Okay, so you have the hippocampus that is tied to memory.
Yep.
And that memory pieces kick in to finish these sentences because you've created patterns in your brain, and now you have this memory, right?
Yes.
But language, quote unquote, part of the brain is happening in the cortex.
Okay.
So now
different part of the brain.
Different part of the brain.
Yeah.
So now you're like using two different parts of the brain, and they're able to measure that. They're able to measure oxygen flow and all these other things where the cortex is going to be working through the discussion part, the language part, the understanding part, but you're enacting your hippocampus, which is your memory part, because you've seen these patterns and now you can start popping this stuff in. It's two different parts of the brain that are firing when you're doing this. This is not part of language. This is a different part of the brain that's filling in the end of your sentence because we've created patterns of how you talk.
So I'm told
that part presented by science.
Science. Okay. So
here's the quote. You ready?
Yeah.
You ready? Hey, Drew, what do you think about this? Well, Brandt, the hippocampus started building up rhythmic theta activity that is linked to memory access and memory processing.
You lost me at
theta.
Beta. Theta.
Rhythmic theta is also going to be my new band name.
I like it.
We are Rhythmic Theta.
I think the psychological terminology on that is called cognitive alignment.
Go on, doctor.
You know, we both do a little homework here. So cognitive alignment. This refers to the degree in which like people share knowledge or beliefs or understanding in a conversation or a context. So what you were describing happening physiologically in the brain, psychologically is called cognitive alignment. And this can be good, right? Because do you remember last season we were talking with Blake in our restaurant episode, and he was talking about the back of the house. So in a kitchen, you have to know all the little pieces and how they work. When we talked with him about this, he talked about there being kind of an unspoken language that you either get it or you don't get it. And sometimes people will try and come in to help. And he had this piece of like, helping doesn't actually help. You could get in the way unless you know what's going on. So because
you interrupt it.
Because you could interrupt their process. So if you and
I did with you.
Exactly. So when there is a process that we're working through, we need this cognitive alignment, this kind of synchronicity to be able to anticipate and know what the other person is going to do. So that way we can jump in and do that next piece. It helps with efficiency. It helps with working through things with a group of people at a faster pace. This makes things more efficient, and it could reduce that need for clarification and being like, what are we doing here? What am I doing there? We both know how we're doing this and what we're doing. We can make it click and work really fast by using this skill set.
Yeah. When you were learning it, you didn't do this in hour 3. You did this in week 3.
Yeah.
So when you're learning it, like if you've never done it before, but you really want to get into it, you're probably learning it and you're probably using a lot of your cortex, right? You're using that part of that brain where you have to learn this new language. You have to learn all these things. But now you switch that over, you start creating some of this memory. So if you're at I don't even know how kitchens work. If you're at the salad station, you learn the language, you learn the cadence, you learn how it comes out of the chef's mouth or whoever's calling for it. And now you're in the realm of memory. So you're kicking it in, right? So you can anticipate what's going on. You've memorized something. Now you're using a different part of the brain. And that's when you reduce frustration. That's when your productivity increases. That's when all these things kick in because you can anticipate what's happening. And you could, in theory, if it's really clicking, finish their sentence.
Bum, bum, bum.
And ultimately, because this podcast is about listening and not about talking, it's because you're listening. Because you are doing an exceptional job, just like that episode about the kitchen. Listening is critical in all aspects of restaurants.
Yeah. And this builds up that trust piece or the rapport piece that you and Clippy had. Not a great relationship because there was no rapport being built there. The relationship, the trust piece was not there. So in this process of engaging that memory and having that, working towards that cognitive alignment, we are strengthening those relationships. And that gives us, again, that ability to maybe fill in someone else's sentence.
Remember when Clippy would just pop out of nowhere?
Most times.
It wasn't like, hey, you're firing up a Word document. Here's this little helpful hint down at the bottom. No, you'd just be typing along. It was like, hey, out of the right-hand bottom corner. Hey, there you are. You're like, Jesus, what the hell is that?
Where'd you come from?
And why are you here? There's no anticipation. There was no, let me help you. There was no easing into it. It was just coming out of nowhere. It freaked me out.
We were talking about this cognitive alignment in a kitchen, back of the house sense of that synchronicity working and seeing that in effect. What are other examples where we've seen this play out before, where people can think really closely together and fill in each other's sentences?
I can't help but think about sportscasters. If you actually think about somebody that is calling a baseball game, their ability to share a story when the inning gets long, but also keep you excited about what's happening on the field, but then also to do it with somebody else, it takes training.
Sure.
Like if you listen to baseball games and all of a sudden you get some new announcer or something like that, and you're like, oh, this is kind of awkward. They don't know how to play off of each other yet.
Right.
They don't get each other yet.
Yeah.
But those that have been doing it forever, Monday Night Football or whatever it was with John Madden and either Pat Summerall or John Madden and Al Michaels, you could turn that on. It was just calming conversation. They could play off of each other. They could listen to each other. They could finish each other's sentences. And it was just, they just gelled to the point that they got paid millions of dollars to be in everybody's television every Monday night. And it's so smooth that it works.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge example of, do they finish each other's sentences? They could. It's pretty damn close because they have to talk for 2 to 3 hours straight.
Yeah.
And they have to do it flawlessly.
So yeah, you've got just a number of skill sets that have to come together there. So one is having a deep, rich understanding of the game itself and how it works. Having a deep understanding of the players on the field so you can talk about what they might be thinking or feeling at the moment in that play or that situation. And then you have to know your co-host, what they might say and how they might interpret things. So there's a number of pieces going on, and it, like you said, it takes time. It is a shared experience, but man, when you see that happening, it's pretty cool. You can tell that those people are close and they've got something going on.
I would venture to say that I'll give 2 other examples.
Yeah.
We are podcast hosts.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Okay.
We have received some feedback that this podcast sucks.
You guys need to stop doing this. I listen to everyone now.
I'm sure it's out there, but nobody's told us that yet. But we have received feedback that, hey, this is pretty fun. It's fun listening to you guys.
Yeah.
I like your topics. It's fun listening to you guys, your banter back and forth, yada, yada, yada. We didn't just meet each other.
No.
I didn't put an ad in the paper that said looking for a podcast host. We've known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
To whatever degree, we can sit here and talk to each other for an hour and a half. Another example, another podcast that I really enjoy, and that's Smartless. And that is Will Arnett, Sean Hayes, and Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
3 world famous actors. And they talk to world famous actors and musicians and all these other things. And their guests are amazing.
Yeah.
But they could also talk about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for an hour, and I'd still listen to it. The reason why is because they've all known each other for 20 plus years. They're all best friends.
Yeah, they're really close to each other.
They're close to each other.
And it shows.
They do finish each other's sentences.
They do finish each other's sentences.
Because they're so close.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of examples of the opposite, where there are times where I've been part of a conversation or a group where I'm like, I'm not syncing. I'm not jiving. I cannot follow this at all. That was called economics class in college. I just, for some reason, and I don't think it's economics itself because I geek out about a lot of that stuff. I'm not going to blame the professor. I don't think it was him. I think it was him and I were just from different worlds. And I could not figure out what he was talking about, where he was going. I could not anticipate his next steps. And I was completely lost. And also didn't like the guy because of it. But
yeah. Okay. So let's tie this back together. So we have examples where we just don't get the other person.
Yeah.
Right. They're fine. They're friendly. It's not like they're mean. They're friendly. We've spent some time with them. It's hard to connect. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to build that relationship. And even if it's an interpersonal thing, or even maybe it's a lecture hall, it could be a little bit less personal. Mm-hmm. Or my example of you get two brand new announcers, or maybe one has been the steadfast person and they've got a new person that they're bringing in. And it's just like, oh God, they're not familiar with each other. This is going to be awkward. They're like, how do they do this? Those types of things all gets tied in with their ability to feed off of each other, to anticipate what the other person is saying. Mm-hmm. There's probably some emotion. I'm not talking about love or romantic, but there's probably some emotional connection to them or to each other. You can feed off of that. You can feel it. You can see how they interact with each other. And that is tied in with this kind of autofill idea that you can finish their sentence.
If there's a similarity somewhere in there, there's a similar knowledge base, similar beliefs, similar understanding, that is that connection where we can start working with that. We can work on that cognitive alignment more and start to get to know that person more. There are friends of mine who may be in a profession that I know nothing about. Those are not the things that we talk about while we're hanging out. We are probably talking about what our kids are doing because it's something that is overlapping in our lives that we've got a shared knowledge of. It might be a hobby or a sport or an activity that we really like. And that is the thing where there's cognitive alignment. When it comes into other aspects of their life or other aspects of my life, totally clueless. If you start talking to me about video games or, even sports, we're, talking about sports a little bit before, I can kind of follow along, but I don't have the knowledge there and the understanding of it to really get into it. So when I do come across situations like that, I try to find those overlapping spots so we can have some kind of connection.
And that's that listening piece and trying to find that common thread. And we've talked about that in other episodes too of what can I relate to? Yeah. Can we relate to this? And if I can't relate to it, are you interesting enough to keep me dialed in? Let me ask you a question. You love the AI. You love the chat GPT. You throw finishing each other's sentences into the chat AI, GDP.
I did.
Gross domestic product.
What?
It's economics. I'll explain it to you later. What is the chat GPT world talking about, Brandt?
I always think of things like this is a skill set. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. What are some of the nefarious things that this skill set could be used for? Here's what I came up with. So
go on. I'm intrigued.
I started looking at...
I love how you're like, is this good or evil? Like, there's nothing in between.
No, nothing in between. Well, no, I didn't...
It's either like, is this a powerful laser or a powerful laser? Is it going to be used for good or is it going to be used for evil?
Exactly. Am I going to use this little laser to play with the cat, or am I going to use this to shine up at an airplane?
Yes.
They could be used either way.
Give it to me.
I always like going the opposite direction just because, I don't know, it fascinates me. That's a whole different neuroses that we could talk about at a different time.
No, you got into my neuroses. Now it's time for you to get into yours. No, so what does the chat GPT say?
So I took this into how can this be used in maybe not a great way?
Yep.
Used for evil, right?
For evil.
Yeah. I came up with a couple things. One is that this could be used to manipulate a conversation. I could be leading a listener to finish my sentence to get them to agree with me on maybe something they didn't really want to agree on before.
Heads exploding. Right? Keep going.
Could use this to creating a false consensus. So by anticipating and completing another person's thoughts in a way that aligns with their own agenda, an individual can create an illusion of agreement or consensus, which may not genuinely exist.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Gaslighting. You could use this in gaslighting.
It's one of my least favorite terms. Go on.
Con artists would be really good at this.
At finishing each other's sentences just to manipulate the conversation?
Correct. Because by finishing or mirroring language, they can create a sense of familiarity and connection, making their targets more susceptible. Okay.
Oh my God. Brandt, should we stop talking about this? Are we giving people... Okay, no, go on.
No,
I want more. Tell me more.
The last area that I thought of was fortune telling. Because if you are...
What?
Well, think about it. You're going in to see a fortune teller. What are you paying them to do?
To finish your sandwiches.
To finish your sentence, right? Sandwich? Yeah. To finish your sentence. So they're going to use vague language and generalizations. They're going to try and pick up on little things you might be saying or doing to create this illusion of understanding.
I see that you are going to be traveling.
It's because I'm carrying a fucking
suitcase. I see that you're going to be traveling. Wait, you're in an airport. You're right.
Oh my
You're right.
gosh.
I am traveling. But where am I traveling to? Your ticket says Argentina. You're right.
So,
Brandt, that's I never in a million years would have gone to the like, how do people use this to manipulate situation?
right?
Do I do that? Do I do it to manipulate it and I'm not even thinking about it? Is it a subconscious manipulation?
It could be. I think of that a lot of times, right? Of like, how am I maybe subconsciously manipulating a situation or conversation to get my needs met? So I think that's part of the reason I want to look into it. I'm like, okay, just because I'm good at like reading cues or reading body language or emotional cues, how am I using that?
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And you got that from the internet?
It's all fact. Everything on the internet.
I believe everything you just said. I'm all in. I believed every word that you just said. This is what we've talked about.
Yep.
We have talked about finishing each other's sentences and how that is an act of listening. Could be tied into similar to a nonverbal cue that says, I am listening to you. But it's a weird response. It can be controlled, but is likely more of a subconscious response. You're using multiple areas of the brain to do this, research shows. It is typically with those that are closest to you that you understand their language patterns, you understand their cadence, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
It can be used to manipulate in some ways for those that are exceptionally good at it. They can kind of steer what you're saying before you're even saying it. But we also use it for good, and it can be and it's not necessarily finishing sentences, but that relationship and that professional ability to tie into everything that everybody's talking about. That can be podcast hosts, that can be sportscasters, things of that nature have that direct tie with each other where they could finish each other's sentences. They just don't need to, but they're that close to doing it. It's a memory thing. It's an empathy thing, but it can also be an impatience and anxious, impulsive response. Did I capture it all?
You did. It makes me think of, as we're talking about this, and we keep saying finish each other's sandwiches, the song from Frozen just keeps playing through my head. Love is an open door.
Yes.
And you know what he does? Prince Hans of the Southern Isles is he gets close.
You've watched it more recently than I have.
I have two young girls that love this movie. I could probably recite the whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah, and I used to be able to 10 years ago. Go on.
So Prince Hans gets close to Anna and uses this skill set to manipulate her to take over the throne of Arendelle.
Holy shit.
And the whole joke is in the line, isn't it crazy how we finish each other's
sandwiches because he's
manipulating her. I just put that together.
Fucking crazy. It's right there. Folks listening at home, whenever you listen to this podcast, I shit you not, we had the whole sandwiches thing. That just happened real.
Yeah.
That was real, live, like all the things coming together.
All came together.
And just like everything else in the world, it's all about Disney.
Exactly.
Now, Brandt, I know this surprises you, but I have done some research on this whole finish each other's sandwiches thing. Okay. Because if you've watched the movie Frozen 754 times like we have, it's a thing. Now, where did it come from? What was its origin? It was not from the movie Frozen.
It's not from Frozen.
I know. That's what probably made it the most popular.
Yeah. It's a great little joke, though. It's a great joke.
It's fantastic. It was utilized about, let's see, Frozen was what, 12?
2013.
It was utilized about 13.
Yeah.
Okay, it was about 5-6 years earlier. So it was used in Arrested Development, which I know that was an early 2000s thing, so there was some time frame in there. But Arrested Development and that 70s show, those two things happened the day after each other.
So those shows aired within days of each other.
One day
had
apart
the same joke in the show.
Finish each other's sandwiches.
Okay.
In the same show.
In the same show.
Not the origin. The origin, my friend, was from a few years earlier than that. And the show was called The Simpsons.
Oh, The Simpsons predicts everything.
The Simpsons predicts everything. And in The Simpsons, Homer and Marge are talking, and Marge says we can finish each other's, and Homer says sandwiches.
Of course he does.
A few years after that 70s show and Arrested Development, a little nod to Will and Jason again, within days of each other say the same thing, and then made super duper 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 popular by the movie Frozen, where they finish each other's sandwiches.
Okay, I'm looking this up here. We're going to have to check this out.
Are you fact-checking
I
it right
am,
now?
yeah. The Simpsons, season 16, episode 16 is when it was used.
90, carry the 7, so 2005-ish, 89, right? It was an 89, The Simpsons,
89,
so 2005-ish.
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Mhm.
See, there you
Ot
go.
5. There were some rumblings on the internet that it may have been a Joey thing from Friends. I couldn't find any evidence of that. So we're just going with The Simpsons.
We'll take it. The Simpsons are genius.
So they finish each other's sandwiches just like we did today.
Speaking of sandwiches, I'm getting hungry.
Yep, it's about that time. Okay, Brandt, we have unpacked a lot. This was one little subject that, shockingly enough, we were able to put an entire podcast around because we talk about listening and finishing each other's sentences. And I need your takeaway from today.
Okay, my takeaway from this is that my impulsiveness to finish someone else's sentence is not always a bad thing, but with control and restraint, it is an indicator that I am trying to find a connection with another person, not be annoying and interrupt them. How about you?
My biggest takeaway is use this for good. Don't use this for evil. Or just don't use it at all.
Don't listen.
No, not that. There are great ways to indicate that you are listening and that you are a good listener. I don't think that finishing somebody's sentence is a good way to do it. I think it's risky. I think that it has to be calculated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is a bad habit. And I think that you can become aware of it. I'm sure there's all 7 people that are listening to this episode are going to be like, shit, I got to stop doing that. But if you are doing it and you are, just be aware of it, because the risk reward on this tactic of the act of listening, I think the risk is pretty high that you're going to piss that other person off or it's going to be annoying. That's my takeaway. It's not necessary. It is not an essential tool to indicate that you're listening to somebody.
Interesting. Not an essential tool. I'd say when that urge comes on or recognizing it, that is an indicator that you are following along with this person, that you are creating a sense of familiarity and understanding with them. That's what it tells us. Do you need to blurt out everything that comes into your head? No. Can you offer? You can offer, right? If especially like I'll do this. I'll get really stuck on something. I'm like, come on, what is the word?
Oh yeah,
that's me then asking.
No, that's fine.
Right? I'm asking.
Yeah, you just gave permission.
Yep.
Oh, what's it called? What's their name? You just gave verbal permission. You're asking, will you help me with this?
Yeah.
Will you help me with it? That's okay.
Okay.
You asked.
So when I'm
that's okay.
accidentally overhearing someone's conversation at the airport, and I'm like, you're talking about this, so you want to say that. I shouldn't be filling in someone else's sentence.
It was in December. Don't do that.
So many times I've wanted.
It was game 6. In the description of this podcast, you will find more information and a list of any of the sources that we used.
This podcast is created and produced by Drew Richmond and Brandt Christofferson. Editing by me, and the I'm Listening theme music by Drew.
That's me.
That's you.
Brandt, I will talk to you later, my friend.
We'll see you next time.
Yeehaw!
Have a good one, Drew.
Bye, Brandt.